Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sydney Harmon Hall. We would like to remind you that the taking of photographs and the use of recording or filming devices are strictly prohibited. We also request that you turn off all mobile devices. Thank you.
Where's my... Steh ich mir bei meinen Taten auf der Tier, was hab ich da zu sorgen? Nicht also die blonde Haar, wie die schwarze Augen. Es ist nur du so schön golden Silber, was soll zu meinem Herzen teugen? In meinem Herzen brennt ein Feuer, wenn ihm kämen geht. Keiner kann es nicht verlöschen, als ich der Mond sich in dir mein Teuer Leben, kann ich in dir nicht vergessen. Auf dem Pripetschik liegt ein Feuer, von dem Käumen geht ruhig, als ich der Mond sich in dir mein Teuer Leben, geht mir aus mein Keuch. Zu weinen will ich nur mehr leben, wie die. Zu weinen will ich nur mehr leben, noch der Zeit zu klugen, als ein schön golden Silber, wie ich hab ungewohren. In Gott nur weiß, ich will schon haben.
Good evening. My name is Martha Gonzalez, and I will be your master of ceremony for tonight's concert. How's everybody doing? All right. This is a celebration. You've just heard 2018 National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellow Ethel Rame, whom you will get to hear more from later this evening. It's an honor for me to be here tonight with so many incredible artists. I hope all that genius rubs off on me. I said that last year, I'll say it this year again. I'm a musician myself. I'm the lead singer for Grammy Award-winning Chicano rock band Quetzal from East LA. And I'm also an assistant professor at Scripps Claremont College in the Intercollegiate Chicano Latino Studies Department. So I want to give a shout out to my students who are hopefully watching, because, you know, I assigned this as part of the class. So they better be watching. So over the past few years, I've been fortunate to work closely with the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, the State Folklife Festival, Folklife Program in California, as well as the Smithsonian Folklife Festival and the Smithsonian Folkways label. As I've had a chance this week to meet the artists and artisans you're going to meet tonight, what struck me is first of all, their immense gratitude. They're always mentioning their mentors, of course, their families, but equally important, and all of them have said this, is their immense gratitude they have for their communities, right? Whether it's participatory music and dance practices or the artistry that they learned from artisans, it's always a community that surrounds and sustains the practice. And this is inspiring. And especially now, more than ever, we need community. We need to find ways of building community, right? My hope for today is that as we listen to all of these wonderful artists, that we become even more inspired to reach or reinstate ourselves in communities, to learn from the mentors that are out there, that every community has cultural treasures, and that we find them, that we build relationships with them, that we honor them, so that we can begin to sort of come back together again, right? All right, that is our goal for tonight. And now, are you ready for the celebration? Yeah, all right. I'd like to introduce to you 2018 National Heritage Fellow Eddie Bond of Fries, Virginia, and the New Ballards Branch Bogtrotters. Come on down here, Eddie. Eddie's hometown of Fries, Virginia, is in the southwestern corner of the state near the North Carolina border and is storied center of Appalachian string band music. Now, tell us the name of your band again.
The name of our band is the New Ballards Branch Bogtrotters. That's quite a mouthful, I know. Why don't we all just say it together? The New Ballards Branch Bogtrotters.
Excellent.
And so the Bogtrotters name goes way back in Gaelic, back to the 1920s and 30s. So the original Bogtrotters, that was Uncle Wade Ward and his brothers Crockett and Field and Sampson Ward, and Uncle Eck Dunford and Dr. Davis. And the Bogtrotter name, actually Bogtrotter is an Ulster Scots Irish name that came over. You see, the Irish didn't much care for the Ulster Scots because they were taking over their land, and it was a derogatory name that they called them a bogtrotter.
So they took it back up.
It is, and Uncle Eck Dunford, he spoke Gaelic and read Gaelic, and that was the connection that Dennis had with that was through Uncle Eck Dunford.
Excellent. Wow. So what are the origins of this music then?
Well, the origins of our music...
How far back does it go?
Oh, well, we couldn't know for sure because the Irish brought the fiddle over and the Africans brought the banjo over, the Spanish brought the guitar over, and just like all good things in America, we came together and it all meshed together and we made something brand new out of it. So, we've been doing it ever since.
So I understand that the Lomax family has recorded them?
Yes, they came down and recorded some of the original Bogtrotters, and you can hear that online through the Library of Congress, I believe.
Wow, that's great. So Library of Congress, don't forget that. We're going to look into that. So can we hear something else from you?
Oh, sure.
All right.
You want us to play half the night?
Please.
Maybe just a couple.
Please, keep playing.
All right.
Let's hear for them.
All right, thank you very much. We're gonna try you an old tune. This is a Tommy Jarrell tune. Tommy was a great fiddler. Lived just down the mountain below Galax, and a lot of folks classify him in the Round Peak section of the old time catalog. Tommy was one of my heroes, and this is a tune he liked to sing called "The Big-Eyed Rabbit." Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Y'all are a great audience tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I want to introduce the rest of the band before I forget to do that. Over here on my far left, she comes from Elkin, North Carolina. On the old mandolin with us tonight is Caroline Beverly. And on the old big guitar here, he's playing an Edmunds guitar handmade in Galax, Virginia. And that's where he lives, in Galax, Virginia. He started this band back in 1986. This is Mr. Dennis Hall from Galax, Virginia. On the big old bass fiddle back here, she comes from Freeze, Virginia. Keeps us all in good time. This is my wife, Bonnie Bond. Then on the old 5-string banjo, he also comes from Galax, Virginia, Mr. Josh Ellis. So we're going to do you one more tune here, and this is a regional tune from our neck of the woods, and Tommy Jarrell said he learned this tune from Pat McKinney. He was a Civil War veteran, and I reckon he must have wrote this tune called Breaking Up Christmas. And Breaking Up Christmas is kind of a tradition at home that we have after the Christmas holiday when everybody's kind of been off work for a while and we've got kind of lazy. So, you know, the breaking up Christmas party, that means, you know, it's time to get serious. We got to go back to work. All the fun has to end at some time, right? So we have a breaking up Christmas party, and that's what this tune, that's where this tune came from. So we're going to play a little bit of that for you. Thank you again for being such a great audience. and this is special guest Aaron Marshall from Galax, Virginia.
Ladies and gentlemen,
All right,
Mr.
what we
Eddie
say here is
Bond.
take a bow,
Say it
y'all.
with me.
Take
The
a bow, ready
new
to go.
Ballard's Branch Bog Trotters. Wow, that's amazing. You think they need any Mexicans out there? I'm ready, Eddie. Wow, so exciting. That was amazing. Marion Coleman. Marion Coleman's work has its foundation in traditional quilting and shares roots with generations of women who have used sewing and other needle arts for artistic expression and social commentary. In the last 3 years, her work has been exhibited numerous times nationally and internationally, in South Africa, in Europe, Japan, Costa Rica, and Israel. Now, let's meet Miss Marion Coleman from Castro Valley, California.
Thank you.
Oh. Where did you learn quilting?
Well, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, taught me to sew when I was a youngster. And some 20, 30 years later, my great aunt Corrine taught me how to quilt.
Wow. So tell us about these gorgeous quilts. First, what does quilting mean to you?
Well, it represents warmth, comfort, but it also reminds us of memory, history, and life all around us. So, quilting has a little bit of everything. And I bet all of you know at least one quilter or have had one quilt in your life.
So tell us about these beautiful pieces of work here, please.
This piece, Loving, is really a personal story. And I'm documenting how at an earlier point in time, it would have been illegal for my husband and I to be married. He was born in Iowa, and I was born in Texas. So you'll see I'm on this side, and he's on this side. And down the center, I list various laws in various states that prohibited interracial marriage. And I'm also talking about some of the reasons that happens. However, the Loving family filed with the Supreme Court against Virginia. So this is why I call it Loving. And down here, I actually show the law. And throughout this quilt, I'm really talking about loves. You can see all the hearts. I'm doing variegated threads throughout.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment and really explain what a quilt is. It's a piece drawn or just plain painted top with a middle and then a back. And so quilting is actually when you stitch through all 3 layers. So here I've done what's known as free motion quilting. I don't have a plan in mind. So there are swirls and loops. Sometimes I put hearts, squares, triangles, however the spirit moves me. And that's known as free motion quilting. I do most of my quilting by machine. However, I do some handwork and binding, extra embellishments, and so forth. But this is a machine quilt. This is all designed by machine.
Gorgeous.
Now this piece is totally different. This is a pictorial quilt, and I used a photo with permission from the Smithsonian, and it's called Waiting for the Freedom Train. I often wondered how slaves would feel after they were freed. Where would they go? What would they do? So you can see that they all look very serious. They're thinking. And I'm often wondered, now where would I go next? However, when I'm out talking to students at schools, I was really amazed when a student said to me, Miss Coleman, do you notice that there are eyes in this quilt? So now we know we're looking at the quilt, and it's looking at us. So I'm going to take you on a tour.
Yeah.
This bottom piece is taken from an old photo of my grandmother and her sister, so I call it Sisters. And the lady in the green is my grandmother. She has an unusual name. Her name is Everita, and her sister Ollie. And as we move up, this is a memory quilt. When I was a youngster, I grew up in North Texas, and we used to drive in our old Oldsmobile. That's a photo of that. And then we would drive down to Central Texas to visit my great-grandparents in their farm.
The little girl in the white dress?
Now,
Who's that?
that's little Marion. And so you'll see her here and here. And that's a map of the area that I got from the University of Texas, Austin. They were kind enough to let me use that. And I'll just take a few minutes and say that that's a photo transfer process. And if you want to know about that, you can call me. Okay. At the top, I call it Texas Sunshine, and that's my maternal grandmother, and she's standing in a field on their Texas farm. I have a number of photos of her, and she always has her hand on her hip.
Nice.
Now, as we move over, at the very top is my sister-in-law, Susan. This is part of a series of quilts that I did that I call Yes, We Are 50 Plus. And so I'm documenting all of you good-looking women who are over 50. Now, I'm not going to say how much older I am. All right. And as we come down, this is a black cowboy quilt. It's called Trailblazers. I made 5 quilts in this series, and I had a lot of fun trying to find fabrics that mimicked the actual coloring of horses. And it is inspired by the Oakland, California Black Cowboy Parade that's usually held the first Saturday in October, so it's coming up very soon. At the bottom is Healing Hands, Caring Hearts, and I am telling the story of African-American medical professionals. I grew up in a time when children had polio, so I clearly remember those public health nurses coming to our school to give us those polio shots. There's a peace background with an applique overlay, so that's Healing Hands, Caring Hearts.
Beautiful. Wow. So how does one display these quilts?
Well, in my home, I put a slat and a sleeve behind it, and I hang them in the hallway. But you will find quilts everywhere. You'll find them in touring exhibits and museums. You will find them in public spaces like libraries, hospitals, community centers, and so forth. So get out and see if you can't find one.
Where do you see the future of quilting going?
I think the sky's the limit for quilting. My job as a quilting artist, a teaching artist, is to get out and try to help as many people as possible learn how to quilt. So I do that in schools, and I go to community centers, libraries, and if you're in California, look for me.
Oh. The legacy is in good hands.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marion. Oh. Marion Coleman, everybody. Wow. Wasn't that amazing? Inspirational. Tonight we're going to see many people who respect the cloth, as one of our fellows has said. And this is one example of how textiles shape our culture. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the Deputy for Programs and Partnerships of the National Endowment for the Arts, Mr. Tony Chavot.
Good evening. On behalf of all of us at the National Endowment for the Arts, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2018 National Heritage Concert. Now in its 36th year, the National Heritage Fellowship Award is our nation's highest honor for traditional artists. The days leading up to tonight's concert have been action-packed for this year's honorees, with embassy receptions, Wednesday evening's awards ceremony, reception and dinner at the Library of Congress, as well as 3 days of rehearsals for tonight's concert. We value the collaboration of our partners in planning and executing these 2018 awards, namely the National Council for the Traditional Arts, the Library of, absolutely, the Library of Congress, and the library's American Folklife Center. To Julia Olin, Executive Director of the National Council for the Traditional Arts, and Madeline Ramez, the Council's Associate Director who has coordinated all of this week's events, our sincere appreciation for their terrific work. And special thanks to Paul Douglas McNevich, the director of this evening's concert, as well as Martha Gonzalez, our dynamite mistress of ceremonies. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize a remarkable and dedicated group of individuals at the National Endowment for the Arts. They work tirelessly to bring the best of our nation's art and culture to every corner of America. The NEA's Director of Folk and Traditional Arts is Cliff Murphy. Cheryl Shealy and Bill Mansfield serve as program specialists for this discipline. And they, along with the NEA's Aaron Whaler and Jenny Termaine, are especially deserving of our gratitude for bringing these awards to fruition this evening. The men and women we honor tonight are master artists, traditional bearers, educators. But our Heritage Fellows also serve as reminders of the expansive nature of the arts in our great nation. When we're talking about American art, we're talking about African-American quilts and Day of the Dead altars, Appalachian fiddle tunes and rhythm and blues melodies. We're talking about Anishinaabe black ash baskets and Palestinian embroidery, Franco-American music, and cowboy couture. It's thanks to artists and advocates like our Heritage Fellows that the United States can claim a cultural landscape that is so rich, so vibrant, so varied. This incredible diversity ensures that every person can see themselves in the arts and know that their own traditions and expressions of creativity have a valued place in the American cultural canon. As we celebrate tonight's talents and influence of our Heritage Fellows, let us thank them for showing us that the arts transcend geography and background. The arts belong to all of us, shaping who we are as a people, sustaining our communities, and defining who we are as a country. We're so grateful to our Heritage Fellows for sharing their traditions and their art forms with us. And we're grateful to each of you for joining us this evening as we collectively extend our gratitude and congratulations to the 2018 National Heritage Fellows. Now please welcome back Martha Gonzalez.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. And thanks to the National Endowment for the Arts for all their support to the artists that you're meeting here tonight. And now we'd like to welcome this year's Best Lomax Hawes Award recipient, Ethel Rhyme of the Bronx, New York. Come on. I won't bite. I won't bite very hard. Oh, darling. This special designation goes annually to a fellow who has been particularly dedicated to education or stewardship of living traditions. It's named in honor of the late folklorist Bess Lomax Hawes, who was longtime director of folk and traditional arts at the NEA. Bess helped build a national network of state folk life programs and helped get the National Heritage Fellowship started back in 1982. Welcome. Congratulations. Thank you. So I understand that you knew Bess Lomax Hawes, right?
I did. I knew Bess, primarily in her role as the director of the Folk and Traditional Arts at the National Endowment for the Arts. And we came in annually, sometimes 4 times a year when that was possible, for grants. And Bess was incredibly helpful. She had an enormous presence, grace, warmth, wisdom, generosity. She was incredible. And yeah, we worked with Bess for very, very many years. And she sort of understood the whole picture of presenting traditional artists. the field research, the documentation, leading up to presentation. And she also understood the need and importance of presenting community artists in the context of community.
Beautiful. That
Yeah,
sounds like you're
she's-
describing yourself, right? Your
was
work
best.
is wonderful. And we have a video that really contextualizes your work, and we'd like to see that now.
Und wie Normen wir dorten Teller brechen, euer manzen Moment, weil ich sehe und I can't remember a time that I didn't have a connection to traditional music. As a very young child, I heard this music, and it was so beautiful. At that age, I was put up on a table, and I would sing Binala, hop, 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 hop. It was like breathing. My parents were Yiddish speakers. I heard Yiddish songs from a very tender age. My parents would entertain themselves and their friends in people's homes, and people would sing. So it was like very natural. I've been singing a good deal of my life, and I started singing in groups when I was 16, and I've been part of a number of different groups. I started the Penny Whistlers, and then I sang with Urban Women Village Songs, and that was with the late Sonia Cohen, Catherine Foster, my wife, and we actually still perform sometimes. I started work for the Smithsonian Folklife Festival with Martin Koenig. When we left the Smithsonian, Martin asked me to join him to be co-director of the Balkan Arts Center. And we were able to bring some of the models of programming that we did for the Smithsonian, and the key part of that was the inclusion of the community. We started out as the Balkan Arts Center, then became the Ethnic Folk Arts Center, and now we're the Center for Traditional Music and Dance.
CTMD has done extraordinary work under the leadership of Ethel to create very resourceful and creative ways of sustaining these traditions within their communities so that they're able to present and practice and sustain the tradition on their own terms.
I cut my teeth with Ralph Rinsler. On the streets, learning how to do field research, we went to the Greek music shop on 8th Avenue and found out where all the celebrations were happening. And so Ralph and I went to one of those events at Crystal Palace, a Pontic event. One individual musician got on stage with one lira. Everyone was up on that floor. And that floor was vibrating. And I thought for sure we'll land on the 3rd floor from the 4th floor. It was unbelievable. We began work with Zev Feldman and Andy Statman, who were working with Yiddish instrumental music. And they had come across Dave Tarras. And it turns out that this program really was a catalyst for a massive revitalization of klezmer music. We've had that kind of impact on a number of cultures. Queens Ethnic Music and Dance Festival, we would have 1,000 people there across cultures. It echoed the kind of setting for community events back in the old country. And in general, we always tried to go for that kind of experience. The work of the center really is as a catalyst as well as helping communities to sustain traditions. And now with all the new immigration that's happening, there's that much more work to be done.
You can say that again. Beautiful. Wow. What does this award mean to you?
What does this award mean? It means the world to me. I mean, not only because I knew Bess, and I just had such admiration for who she was and the work that she did and her brilliance. But, you know, the recognition of the work that we've done. When we started out, we presented immigrant traditional artists, and as I said there, and as Robert Barron said, in community context, and that was really in the early mid-70s. And eventually the larger halls, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Lincoln Center, Merkin Concert Hall started to present traditional arts. And, you know, I think that, in fact, it was before the term world music was even in use, you know, world music. And I think in part because of the work of the center. And it's very, very gratifying.
Excellent. And finally, how are you going to make sure that this work continues in the future?
The center is in great hands. I think Pete is here, Pete Rashevsky, Maureen Loughran, Naomi Sturm, you're out there. The center is in really great hands. And, you know, the vision, the values, the passion will stay and remain. The ways of doing programs will be more contemporary, different kind of thinking, different ways. You are really a product of your time, and it's very exciting.
Thank you, Ethel, and congratulations once again.
You're wonderful.
Ethel Ram, everybody. When I grow up, I want to be just like her. Amazing. And now, I'd like to introduce to you Don Manuel Cuevas, who comes to us from Nashville, Tennessee, by way of Michoacán, Mexico. And while you may have never seen Manuel before, you most certainly have seen his work. Manuel. Let's welcome Manuel. Venga, chepa acá. How are you?
Just fine.
Ay, qué guapo se ve.
Thank you very much.
So you were born in Michoacán, Mexico, and you started sewing because you saw your brother. Can you tell me a little bit of that
Well,
story?
I actually saw my brother when I arrived to the house, and I said, I saw him kind of playing with tailoring, and my first question was, hey, how are you doing with a little business here? He took a great look at me and says, I would be doing better. Hey, you put your butt on one of these chairs and help me to sew some pants. And I said, why don't I? At the time, I must tell you that I had no idea of sewing or whatever, but I got induced into that, and I sat behind that machine, and I'm still sitting more than 75 years later.
Wow, that's great. So as a young man in the 1950s, then you moved to Hollywood and
Yes.
apprenticed to some of the biggest names in Western wear, right? Who
Yes.
were they, and what did you learn from them?
Well, I must tell you that all of this happened accidentally. I had dressed the right pack. I was bored with that straight suits to me. They all looked like mortician suits. So I was tired of that. And by the way, I should say this, that at the beginning, I really discovered that I never had ambitions to be a designer of any kind. It never crossed my mind as a child. And I was not a dummy. I was considered myself very smart. So it was just a calling. It was not something that I had dreamed of. But what a great thing. Now you're talking about my clientele. And what was your question at the end?
Well, first, I want to know something else. Hang on. So, well, you know what? We keep talking about your work, but we haven't seen it. Why don't we I heard that you might have a fashion show for us.
Why
that
not?
right?
Well, there's a few people that
A ver, véngase
I would
para acá.
love to see here.
A ver,
So you
ready
can-
for the fashion show? Yeah. Woo! Look at this. Beautiful. Look at those colors. Whoa, hey,
Hey.
security.
A tu lugar.
Yes,
Wow. This is great. Wow.
Wow. Beautiful. Excellent. Let's give him a hand. Hey. Beautiful. So wow. So your clothes have been worn by many of the biggest names in American music. I'm going to name them off as we say goodbye to our models. Give me a big hand. Listen to this list right here. Elvis, his entire career. The Jackson 5, Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, Neil Young, David Bowie, the King of Morocco, Lady Gaga, Martha Gonzalez,
Yes.
and even 4 different US presidents.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, he's also addressed several National Heritage Fellows like Flaco Jimenez and Del McCurry.
Yes. Thank you.
In many ways, over the past century, you have crafted what American music looks like in all of its forms. What would you say your signature achievement is?
Well, I have this habit since 1986 to teach what I know, all that I know, and give it to the graduates of colleges of design of the whole country and some foreign countries. Whoever applies gets a chance. I am a little stern when it comes to that because I am always asking them if they really, really want to do it. Because if they don't, I would send them to lay bricks somewhere. And I said, whenever you see a piece of cloth, you gotta show me this, that you have respect for the fabric, for the cloth. If I see you doing something like stepping on a piece of fabric, you're gone.
Excellent. So if you talk to country music stars like Mary Stewart or Dwight Yoakam, they will talk prolifically about your generosity, that you've used your position to give new artists a break. And when we asked you to suggest an artist to perform tonight, you did just that. Here, from Oklahoma to perform in tribute to you and wearing clothes designed by you, as we just saw, is fiddler Kyle Dillingham, along with his group Horseshoe Road, performing a song they wrote for Don Manuel titled You Inspire the World, a Song for Manuel.
Yeah.
It's on my heart to tell you that I love you, and it's been on my mind to make the time to celebrate you. Beauty is what you give, life of love is what you live with. Every stitch we know, you've inspired me so, and you inspire the world. just to tell you that we love you, and we're gathered here, taking time to celebrate you. Beauty is what you give, life of love is what you live with. Every stitch we know, you inspire so, and you inspire the whole world. Yes, you inspire the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Otra, 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 otra. Let's hear it for Kyle Dillingham and Horseshoe Road.
Hey.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Amazing. And please put your hands together once more for Don Manuel Cuevas. Felicidades. Wow. Do we have room for another fellow? ¿Verdad? No manches. Wow. That was amazing. Our next fellow originally hails from Safed, Palestine, and now resides in Milwaukee, Oregon. And she brings with her a rich embroidery tradition that she learned from her grandmother. Farial Abbasi Ganaim has dedicated her life to educating, advocating, and leading efforts to pass on the vibrant cultural tradition of Palestinian embroidery. The embroidery features minute cross stitches combined to create designs that tell stories, communicate meaning, and preserve history. Please welcome Farial Abbasi Ganaim. How'd I do?
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Beautiful. You look gorgeous.
Oh, thank
Gorgeous.
you. Thank you.
How did you learn to embroider?
I learned it from my mother, and my mother learned it from her mother. So every woman in the community, they embroidered, learning from mothers and grandmothers.
Why is embroidery culturally significant? What does embroidery mean to your culture?
There are special meanings in our embroidery. First of all, it's dear to my heart. You know, I feel that the embroidery is part of me. Then also, our embroidery is a teaching piece. Any piece of embroidery, it is teaching the generation something or telling a story about events happen in our homeland in Palestine. So it belongs to the history, belongs to geography. It describes the environment of our homeland, so every generation would know how it looks, even if they don't see it. So also there is a political event that Palestine passed in, like the mandatory of the British mandatory on Palestine, or any other invaders came to Palestine, so we have them documented in our embroidery. Also, the communication between women is very important. It's through embroidery, since in the past, women cannot read or write. There was no schools for women. It was very expensive, and still it's in the 30s or in the 20s, 1920s or something like that. So they tried to communicate, but with embroidery. They understand what the pattern means without any difficulty once they look at it. So it is an educational thing for our generation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these pieces. Can you briefly tell me about this one here first?
Yeah. This piece is one of 5 other pieces describe the traditional Palestinian wedding. So we put this display one of them, which is how they celebrate the bride, how the bride sit on the horse and taken, on the horse to her new husband's home. Also, there are other pieces describe the other parts of the celebration, like women cooking, preparing the traditional big trays of food, like msakhan, we call it. It's chicken and onion and bread. And also other piece which describe the group dancing, which is a dabke, look like these here. They are dancing, but it is a group dancing.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And so you were talking about messages, and there's a beautiful story you have for us about this beautiful piece, the red panel piece.
This piece of embroidery, it called like, every panel on the dress as this, like this is a panel here, but my panel here called the garden because it contained like flowers and some birds and things. But this one, it is one panel. This panel should be going up longer from the feet till the waist. So we repeat this part and this part, then we repeat other. And here, as you see, there are birds here, birds here. That's why traditionally it called the bird. That panel, we call it the bird. But there is a special name among women. They call it the mother and daughter-in-law. Yes. So this, if you look at the lower portion here, you can see the birds facing each other. And there is the nest here in the middle that they share the nest here. Then when you go up a little bit, they are back to back. Something happened. Right. Just a split. Yeah. So that's why they call it like this. And there is a story about it, which is also interesting, the story. And that's why I like this panel a lot. My grandmother, it was like in the 1920s, when the transportation was there was no transportation. So there are some of the transportation are available. So it is available just for men. Men who go to another village or city for business or to buy things for their family. But women taking care of their children and staying home. There is no need to go anywhere. But there are some people in one town, and they have friends in another town or another village. Those women, of course, they like to communicate with their friends in another place. And there is no way, because there is no post office at that time. They cannot write, cannot read. So my grandmother thought of a brilliant idea. She wanted to send to her friend in another town a message. But how can she send it? My grandfather was going to go to that town, and my grandmother just embroidered these two portions and folded as a pillowcase. And just told my grandfather, please take this as a present for my friend Mahmoud. So my grandfather, not knowing what's going on, folded, put it in his pocket, and traveled on his horse, going to the other village. So he arrived there. He saw a Mahmoud, and he said, oh, Muhammad sent you this as a gift. So he just gave it to her. She opened that and looked at it. She understood the message. Her son, Mahmoud, as example, Mahmoud, her son, has just got married like maybe a few months ago. But she was curious. She wanted to know the details. Are they living in with each other, or there is something going on? You know how women like some details.
Oh.
So she started stitching the answer for that message. And since my grandfather was going to stay 3 nights there, she did the message, embroidered this part of it.
That was the answer.
Gave it to my grandfather, put it in his pocket, take it to my grandmother, and my mother knew the answer. So
beautiful. That's fascinating. Fascinating. So now you have several family members with you here today.
What?
Would you introduce each of them? You have family here.
Yes. Where is my family? Come here.
Let's hear it for them. Wow.
Yeah. My daughter, Fida, her son Khalil, and my granddaughter Samira. My second daughter, Wafa, and my third daughter, Safa.
Beautiful.
And they all learn how to embroider. And also learn how to leave a message in their embroidery.
I want to learn how to leave messages. Let's give them a big hand once again. Thank you, Farial.
Thank you.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So I go there.
Let's take it by her. That was a great story, right? We next travel a short distance to Allegan, Michigan, to learn about a rich tradition of Anishinaabe black ash basket making with Kelly Church. Black ash basket maker Kelly Church is Ottawa and Chippewa and comes from the Gun Lake and Grand Traverse bands. She is from an unbroken line of black ash basket makers. Church has been a Southwestern Association for Indian Arts Fellow, an Eiteljorg Artist in Residence, a Smithsonian Native Scholar, and a Native Arts and Culture Foundation Fellow. Additionally, she is a 4-time recipient of the Artist Leadership Program at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Kelly Church. Hello, lovely. Tell us about this tradition. How did you learn?
I come from one of the largest black ash basket families in Michigan, and I learned from my father, Bill Church, and our cousin, John Pigeon. We have a photo from 1919 of our family weaving baskets, because you know everybody always wants some proof. And I would be a 5th-generation weaver with that. My daughter, Cherish, would be 6th generation. But my grandmother always said, we made baskets before they made cameras.
Ooh, good comeback, yes. So what is the significance of the black ash tree? Like this right here? Yes. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the black ash tree is very important to all the natives of the Northeast. In the Wabanaki, they have themselves coming out of the ash tree. That is their creation story. The Anishinaabe, we use our baskets for many things. We use them for utilitarian purposes. We use them for ceremonies, for weddings, for funerals, for all occasions. So they're very important to us when we harvest and many other things. The black ash tree is a very unique tree. It only seeds every 5 to 7 years. The seeds take 2 years to germinate. So when I go into the forest, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at this bark. The bark of the tree, I'm trying to identify it. So a good basket tree has straight bark. It has growth rings about the thickness of a nickel. And once I identify these characteristics, I lay down some tobacco to offer some thanks before I take that tree. And then we harvest it. And we cut it into logs about 6 to 8 feet long, carry them out on our shoulders because we're in the swamps. And then we take that tree home and we pound on it with the backside of an axe. So if you can imagine a 6-foot log, we'll debark it from end to end about 2 inches. And we pound with the backside of a very old axe, which is about 1 inch in width, as hard as you're chopping wood. And then we overlap that every ½ inch until we get down to the end. It separates the fibers in between the growth rings, which will pop up and release. And then we take each growth ring and split it, and that's where all the beautiful basket material comes from.
Beautiful, wow. So I understand you brought some tools, right? That's to show us a little bit of that?
Yes, so that process I just described of splitting, this is a splitter. It looks like a big clothespin, but we use it for splitting our material. We stick the material up here, and you can see with this end of it, it's a growth ring that is in one piece, and when I put it into here and do that scoring, I can peel it down, and you can see all of the beautiful basket material.
Beautiful. So these baskets tell stories, right? Can you tell us about one of these, a story?
Yes. This basket right here, we have the emerald ash borer. It was brought into the United States on some untreated shipping pallets. It has been in Michigan now for over 23 years. We discovered it in 2002, and since then we've lost over 500 million ash trees. So the effects of the emerald ash borer on our tradition are pretty devastating. On this basket, these growth rings represent the galleries that the emerald ash borer will take out the tree with. It sucks the nutrients and creates galleries. Down here we have some unsplit growth rings because, as I said, the outside of the growth ring is very rough. The inside is the beautiful part. So normally the inside of the growth ring is the outside of our basket. I fashioned this one in the opposite way by putting all of the beauty inside the basket, because our growth rings, as with us, people, the beauty comes from within.
Beautiful. Right? Yeah. So what is this?
This here is fashioned after Fabergé eggs. I'm sure everybody's heard of those, except I call mine Fibergé eggs because I'm making them with fibers. So it's made with the growth rings from the black ash tree. There's sweetgrass in here. But it's embellished with metal. It's to show the loss of our materials, but it's also to draw people in. We all like beautiful things, right? But inside, it's to draw people in, to educate them. I like to bring people in, and then when you open it, you will see inside perhaps an emerald ash borer, which is vibrant green, has a copper belly, so in those cases, I will make a green Fabergé egg with copper. This one in particular is called What If, and it represents our water. And so this is called What If. What if you could hold the last bit of clean water from Lake Michigan? We have a pipeline under Lake Michigan which could burst and it could pollute our waters. And as the Great Lakes are 20% of the fresh water in the world, and we are 50 to 60% water, water is truly life. And so this is to educate and remind us about that.
Beautiful. Wow. How are you continuing this tradition?
These here represent the continuation of these traditions. Our children are our future. They're the way that we will sustain these. These traditions have been with us since before this nation has existed, and I'm so thankful to my ancestors for passing them on. And it is with the youth that we bring into the forest. We show them how to harvest firsthand. We show them how to pound and split and scrape. I give 8-year-olds knives and axes and all kinds of things to utilize and teach them how to use them right. And with the youth, we are doing videos, we're documenting, taking pictures, and I'm hoping it will be just like riding that bike. You learn how to ride a bike, you don't do it for a few decades, but you still remember how to do it. So it will be our youth that will replant the seeds that we collect today and wait for those trees to grow 20, 30 years, and then they will become the next teachers that will sustain this tradition into future generations.
Oh, that's beautiful. Miss Kelly Church, your tradition is in great hands, and especially through you. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's hear it again from Miss Kelly Church and the beautiful tradition she's keeping alive. Thank you, Kelly. It is a great pleasure to introduce this next duo. Mr. Don and Cindy Roy, who have been preserving the music of Franco-American fiddle playing. Don and Cindy Roy's music is deeply rooted in the two strains of Franco-American tradition, Quebecois from Canada's province of Quebec and Acadian from the maritime provinces of Canada, both significant to the heritage of New England's robust French-Canadian communities. They are accompanied by Jay Young on the bass. Let's welcome Don and Cindy Roy. goodness. Cindy Roy, please tell me you get paid double. Right? Double the work.
That would be nice.
Right? That's beautiful. So the two of you represent quite literally a marriage of two strains of Franco-American heritage and tradition in northern New England and eastern Canada, right? Tell us about that.
Well, my part of the marriage, the music that I come from, comes from Prince Edward Island. It came with my grandfather to southern Maine, and it was a musical family. He played the fiddle and piano, and my uncle, his brother, also played fiddle and also made fiddles. And they brought the music from Prince Edward Island, which is sort of a blend between Quebecois or French Canadian and a little bit of Scottish mixed in, which I guess means that you can like hear the pipes in the tunes a little bit, and that kind of characterizes the PI or Prince Edward Island sound.
And my side, coming down from Quebec, I think you can really hear reflections of the traditional music of Brittany and the call and response songs that were sung quite often in the countries. So.
Beautiful. So in Franco-American music in Maine, clogging or step dancing, which you demonstrated for us a bit, is an important part of the music, right? The rhythms. Cindy, can you walk me through this?
Well, it's very important, step dancing as we call it, but more integral to the music that we play is the rhythm that goes on as I play the piano. It's a very recognizable rhythm in Quebecois music. It's a 3-beat sound, but it fits into a count of 4, and it's just basically. So it's a tick 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 tick.
Nice.
And very important. It's a wonderful tradition, and still is part of the tradition in French Canada. And rumor or tales are told of lumberjacks who worked in the woods, living in huts with not wooden floors, but dirt floors, would actually take the doors off from the hinges when the fiddle player got the fiddle out, so they would put it on the ground so that they could either dance on it or tap the feet, as we say. It's very, very important in the music.
Beautiful. That's a great story. Wow. So the three of you, Dawn, Cindy, and Jay, back there, host a community orchestra in Maine called Fiddlicious.
Whoa.
I understand you play parallel traditions, right? Irish, country, bluegrass. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they do, and Fiddlicious is a wonderful community of people that get together to play music, and they get a steeping of our French-Canadian heritage, so we can bring them into our living room, into my uncle's basement. But we also like to explore other cultures and traditions. They get, of course, the Acadian and the Cajun music, and Cindy and I really love the music of Cape Breton in Scotland, so they get a good helping of that. And so we like to educate as much as we can with everybody. Just get them a touch of this, a touch of that, and hopefully catch on.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Community. Let's hear it again for Dawn and Cindy Roy. That was amazing. That was amazing. I hope she is getting double pay. I'm going to try to advocate for that. I'm going to have to talk to Dawn. And now for a unique art form and a medium new to the National Heritage Fellowship. We meet Ofelia Esparza. Doña Ofelia Esparza is from my hometown of East Los Angeles, California. Yeah, she is known as a Chicana altarista, or Day of the Dead altar maker. Ofelia is a 4th-generation practitioner. Let's welcome Doña Ofelia Esparza. Siéntese. How you doing? You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. A little nervous.
So tell us about the origins of this practice and how you learned it.
The origins really go back several thousand years in the ancient Mexico, where the days of the dead were honored and celebrated for several days. But with the coming of the European colonizers, the practice melded into the Catholic calendar as November, the All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, November 1st and 2nd. And so it's a practice that's been going on in Mexico for centuries. My mother brought it to, when she came here to the United States, she brought her traditions with her. And so home altars were something I grew up with. The thing that is the most memorable for me are the stories that came along with building of the altars, learning about my great-grandparents, my ancestors. And one of them, the matriarch, my great-great-grandmother, I almost knew her intimately through the stories my mother told. So that's a very important aspect of celebrating Dia de Muertos.
Beautiful. And you've built so many over the years, and I think we have some photographs of some of them, right? Can we look at those now?
Sure.
Tell us more about that.
This is an early altar. Many of the early altars I used actual furniture that belonged to my mother, and in the style of a home altar. And this one's dedicated to her, and it has the traditional elements, especially the indigenous cooking implements like the metate, the grinding stone, and the molcajete. And then there's corn, and decorated with beans as part of the pattern, incorporating all these elements into this composition. It has a central arch that my mother said is part of that creates an ambience for the spirit to come and visit our altar. And by the way, this one with my son Alec helped me with it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's take a look at the next one. So that's a home altar, and this one is beautiful.
Now, this is now a variation of a traditional altar, but it has more contemporary elements in it. Of course, it's larger and it's more recent. And one of the things that I've been doing that I like to visit the folk art of Mexico that's done with tin or aluminum decorations. So it's besides the marigold flowers that are traditional for a Day of the Dead altar, it is topped by these aluminum or tin leaves that I cut out, and it just brings this, not only the color, but this tradition of folk art with it. Beautiful. And this one's dedicated to my family, and it's at Self-Help Graphics.
Beautiful.
Rosanna, my daughter, helped me with this one, and we did it together.
Beautiful. It's a family affair. Beautiful. Let's take a look at the next one.
This is very different, but it's very special. It's also Rosanna, my daughter, worked with me on this one. It's dedicated to Sister Karen Bocalero. She was the co-founder of Self-Help Graphics, and I always mention it because that's where I really began doing Day of the Dead altars. Sister Karen was a strong, hardworking, chain-smoking, coffee drinker nun. And she was a nun like none you've ever known before. And one of the things that she was a workaholic too. She offered her garden home.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's go to the next one. Oh, wow, this is really different.
Again, this is quite a departure from the traditional altars that I'm known for. It's also very special. I call it my family tree of life. And the symbol of the maguey plant, the century plant, is an important icon in my family. My mother always said that it was a tree of life because all of its parts are useful household items that are vital in the indigenous families. And so it's also a project. I became a printmaker at Self-Help Graphics, so it incorporates printmaking. The transparencies are the photographs of my family and my immediate family and my husband's, And so it casts shadows on the wall so that the whole space is incorporated into this altar. And then the floor repeats the design, and it has symbols of the earth and the sky, the sun and the moon.
It's beautiful.
And, well, the other part, my son Javier and I made the leaves out of cardboard and wire, so they're very realistic. It's a very special altar.
Beautiful. I got to see this one. Let's go to the next one. Oh.
This is also a more recent one that my daughter Rosana and I built. This is called Cosmic Woman, and it's dedicated to womanhood. And it's surrounded by symbols of the female from many cultures. And it is made of paper that I prepare to simulate bark cloth. And so it represents Mother Earth, fertility, creativity, and woman.
Beautiful. Let's go to the next one. Ah, gorgeous.
This is our most recent project, again with my daughter Rosana. And it's a monumental piece. It has over 400 objects, and it's a permanent altar for a permanent exhibit at the Los Angeles County Natural History Museum. And it's very special because, not only because of all the objects, but it's in the style of a nacimiento, an altar style that my mother made, nativity scenes with many, many objects and many vignettes. So each section can stand by itself, and it represents different communities and cultures, which we visited over a 3-month period and talked to people from these communities and asked them what would be an iconic item to represent your community. And so it was quite a challenge, and it's really large. The centerpiece is of one of my paintings, and it's there for whenever you visit Los Angeles. Please make sure you visit the Natural History Museum.
No, we will. That's awesome. Beautiful. So your work has been exhibited not just at the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, right? It's a permanent exhibit there. But your work has also been exhibited in many other places like Chicago National Museum of Mexican American Art, Museum of Latin American Art in Los Angeles, and even Glasgow, Scotland, where you mounted the first ever Dia de los Muertos altar.
Yes, and it was a wonderful experience, and the people from that city really embraced not only me and the other artists representing Los Angeles, but this tradition, and I understand they carried it on for a few years, and it was done a few years ago.
Beautiful. So how are you passing this on to the next generation?
Well, most of my children are now involved in, some of them are here.
Well, so I know you have 9 children.
I do,
but they're not all here, right?
No, three of them are in the audience, and 3 are here, and they're all altar makers.
Beautiful. Can you introduce your family to us?
Yes, Elena, and Denise, my youngest, and Rosana.
Beautiful.
And as you see, the altar has the arch that I talked about, and then it has the photographs of my husband and my mother in miniature, and then candles and sage, and the marigolds that mostly are made of tissue paper in this altar.
Beautiful. And so what's important to know, too, from what I understand, is that creating an altar is not just about haphazardly putting objects together, right? There's like a rhetoric to how everything goes together and why, the rhyme and reason to it, right?
There is. Everything in the altar, the ones we create and traditionally represent for the 4 main elements, earth, light, wind, and water. And there's always a glass of water. My mother would say that the soul visits us for these special days, and they come from such a long journey, they're going to be thirsty.
Oh. And your mother had like a saying or something
Yes.
like that? She would say?
My mother always told me, and I always tell this to the people I talk to about altars and Dia de Muertos, and she said that we all suffer 3 deaths, and that the first death is the day that we give our last breath, the day that we die, and that our second death is the day that we're buried, never to be seen on the face of the earth again. Oh dear. And the third, but the most dreaded death of all, is to be forgotten. So this is the essence of why I do altars and continue to do it, and passing them on to my children and the next generations.
That's beautiful. We are so lucky to have you, and so very inspired by you, Ophelia. And I know that in our community, you are like the queen, and I'm so proud of
Thank
what
you. Thank you
you've
so
done
much.
for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Her other kids are somewhere out here. Stand up, kids. Oh, wow, look at that whole row right there. Beautiful. Another hand for La Familia Esparza. Yes. Eso. Wow, it's beautiful. How you guys doing? Doing all right? Are you ready? Our final fellow, Barbara Lynn, was born in Beaumont, Texas in 1942 and started playing guitar in grade school. Before long, she was writing her own music and performing in school talent shows. After graduating high school in 1962, she was discovered in New Orleans and signed a record deal with famed producer Huey Moe. Actually, somebody gave me this out of order. Let me take that again, okay? I don't want to get in trouble. Hang on now. Thank you, Ophelia. Three, two, one, okay. As we come to our final artist, I'd like to thank a few of the folks who have made this National Endowment for the Arts Heritage Fellowship concert possible. First of all, a very big thanks to our host, Sidney Harmon Hall. It bears repeating our gratitude to Madeline Remes, Julia Olin, as well as Paul Douglas McNevich, affectionately known as PD, Cheryl Shealy, and Cliff Murphy. Thank you also to the stellar backstage crew as well. And except for the one who gave me the cards out of order. No, I'm kidding. Her too, it's fine. And finally, let's acknowledge the work of our sign language interpreters, Miyako Villanueva and Trisha Vasquez. Thank you to all. Our final fellow, Barbara Lynn, was born in Beaumont, Texas, 1942. Give it up for her!
So don't worry about me, baby, 'cause I'm right here at home. Oh, baby, oh, baby, we got a good thing going. He may talk about me, scandalize my name, oh yeah, but deep down inside, baby, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, Miss Barbara
Thank you
Lynn.
so
Oh,
much.
I gotta give you a hug. I gotta give you a hug. Oh my goodness. What kind of music is this? How did you start playing?
This is this really is the blues.
The blues.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course. So, how did you start playing?
Oh, how long I started playing? I mean,
How did you start
oh,
playing?
how did I start playing? Sorry about that. I started playing by listening at the radio a lot. You know, listening to the blues in the early 40s when I was a very young girl. And then I started writing songs, you know, putting them to music.
Beautiful. And
Self-taught myself, sort of, you know.
Awesome, beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
so I know you have like a distinct way of playing, like thumb pick or something like
Yes.
that. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little about that?
Yeah, I started playing with the finger pick, but I noticed that was going to kind of be hard for me because the finger picks would slip out of my fingers. So I retreated into playing using the thumb pick, and that worked better for me.
Beautiful. And so you wrote You'll Lose a Good Thing back in the early 60s, and it hit the top 10.
Yes.
I have to tell you, that's like a Chicana like love anthem. In the neighborhood, in the barrio, that song is like, woo! I don't know how many, you know. But it became your signature song, and even the late, great Aretha Franklin covered this song, didn't she?
Yes, indeed. So honored, yes, indeed, to have her to do it.
Tell me what inspired the song.
Well, I was going with this guy. We were in the same band. And I always told him, Sylvester, if you lose me, honey, you're going to lose a good thing. And I ended up going home writing and using that title.
Nice.
And from then on, you know, it took Jamie Records to blow it up to the
Nice.
top. So it crossed over from blues into the pop music. That is,
Right.
yes.
Thank you, Sylvester.
Yes. Oh,
You
yes,
just said his
indeed.
name. You said his name.
Because I laughed all the way to the bank.
Nice. So I understand you have 2 more songs for us.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. We want to hear them now.
Thank you. Okay.
Let's hear it from Miss Barbara Lynn.
This is a song I wrote also in the early 60s. The title of it is, It's Gonna Be a Wild Night Tonight. Gonna be a wild night tonight, 'cause my baby's coming home. Baby's coming home, yeah. Baby's coming. Gonna be a wild night tonight, y'all, 'cause my baby's coming home. Baby's coming home, yeah. He's been away too long, but now here's where he belongs. I don't want to answer the phone. I don't need to talk to no one else. I don't want to answer the phone, y'all. I don't need to talk to no one else. But 7 days are much too long. Now I want him all to myself. ladies and gentlemen. Let's give them a hand. Thank you. All night tonight, y'all. Gonna be up all night tonight. All night tonight, y'all. It's gonna be up all night tonight. But he's been away too long. But now here's where he belongs. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Martha.
Thank you, Miss Barbara
Thank
Lynn. Why don't we meet your band? We have Greg Gardens on drums,
Very short.
Lee Alenzino on bass, Reginald Dural on keys, and Mr. Paul Lil Buck Senegal on guitar. Can we hear one more?
One more.
You know which one I want.
All right.
All right.
The title of this song, ladies and gentlemen, is entitled If You Should Lose Me, You're Gonna Lose a Good Thing. Very true song. You should lose. Oh yeah, you lose a good thing, yeah, baby. If you should lose, oh yeah, you lose a good thing, baby. You know I love you. I don't do anything for you, baby. But just don't mistreat me, boy. And I'll be good to you. And if you should you lose a good thing, yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Giving you one more chance, baby. Baby, just for you to do right. But if you're lonely straight now, baby, you know what, I'll have a good life. 'Cause if you should you lose a good thing, my baby, yeah. Now this is my last time, baby, and I'm not asking anymore. But if you don't do right, boy, you know I'm gonna march out of that door. And if you don't believe, just try, daddy, oh my baby, yeah, and see yourself lose your good thing. See yourself. Good thing, baby. So I'm gonna pack my bags, but I'm not coming back no more, babe. Said I'm gonna pack them, baby, but I'm not coming back no more. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank the ones who went out there and purchased that song for me in the early 60s and made it a #1 million seller. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for Miss Barbara Lynn and the Little Buck Senegal Blues Band. How about another big round of applause also for these wonderful artists, the 2018 National Heritage Fellow. Let's welcome them back to the stage now. Farial Abbasi Ghanem. Eddie Bond. Kelly Church. Marion Coleman. Manuel Cuevas. Ofelia Esparza. Ethel Rain. Don and Cindy Roy. And last but not least, Miss Barbara Lynn. One more round of applause for the class of 2018. From myself, Martha Gonzalez, and on behalf of the National Endowment for the Arts and all the National Heritage Fellows and tonight's performers and crew, thank you very much for